Уважаемый господин председатель,
Mr. President, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I have the honor of conveying the greetings and wishes of peace and prosperity to the peoples of your countries from the President of Turkmenistan, His Excellency Serdar Berdimuhamedov. I congratulate Mr. Çabukuruşe on his election as the President of the 77th session of the UN General Assembly and wish him success in this important position of responsibility. I express my gratitude to the distinguished Abdullah Shahid, President of the 76th session of the General Assembly, for his effective work. Distinguished participants, the current session of the UN General Assembly is seen by Turkmenistan from the point of view of needing to urgently leverage the potential of the global community and the UN's constructive influence on global processes, search for channels of dialogue as the only acceptable way to resolve conflicts and differences, lay the foundations for developing responsible joint approaches to the problems of post-pandemic development, and restore economic and humanitarian ties. For Turkmenistan, the new political year marks an important date, the 30th anniversary of our membership in the United Nations. Based on the solid foundation of engagement with the United Nations that we have built over the years, and reaffirming our commitment to a strategic partnership with the UN and our conviction that there is no alternative to this global entity which is the sole to enjoy universal legitimacy, Turkmenistan will continue its efforts to enhance and consolidate its role in the world and to reaffirm internationally recognized legal norms and the UN Charter as the political and ideological basis for intergovernmental relations. The architecture of global security created within the framework of our organization is being seriously tested today. We are witnessing complex processes that hinder multilateral cooperation, including in such important areas as security and stability. In order to overcome the current difficulties in international relations, Turkmenistan believes that it is necessary to strengthen existing platforms for dialogue and consider establishing new ones for intergovernmental contact and negotiations on pressing issues on the global agenda. Restoring trust and a culture of respectful dialogue is currently gaining universal significance as one of the key conditions for a responsible, non-confrontational approach, seeking opportunities for mutual understanding and preserving a balance of interests when considering problematic issues. In order to further promote the philosophy of trust-based dialogue and international relations, Turkmenistan intends to propose a draft resolution for consideration by the UN General Assembly entitled Dialogue, a Guarantee for Peace. We are convinced that the adoption of such a document would serve to confirm the principled and unequivocal commitment of all UN member states to a peaceful negotiation-based method of resolving conflicts, no matter how difficult they may seem. Further building on our efforts in this area, we invite the international community to declare 2025 the Year of Peace and Trust, based on the provision of the United Nations General Assembly resolution adopted earlier at the initiative of Turkmenistan. Today, the role of peacekeeping instruments in the international community's toolbox is objectively increasing. This includes, in particular, using the potential of neutrality and its conceptual foundations to strengthen overall stability and security. Based on the General Assembly's recognition of neutrality as a factor in strengthening comprehensive peace and security, and the resolution declaring December 12th the International Day of Neutrality, Turkmenistan will continue to work actively with its partners to expand the membership of the Group of Friends of Neutrality for Peace, Security, and Sustainable Development established at the UN. The logic of global processes in the field of security dictates a need to significantly strengthen regional interaction mechanisms. On July 28th of this year, the UN General Assembly adopted a resolution proclaiming Central Asia a zone of peace, trust, and cooperation. We are grateful to the international community for taking this step, which creates the necessary conditions in a strategically important part of the global political map for active efforts to strengthen international security, prevent and resolve conflicts, and build strong and effective regional institutions to that end. As the host country of the headquarters of the UN Regional Center for Preventative Diplomacy for Central Asia, Turkmenistan urges for comprehensive assistance to be provided for its work, which has proven its effectiveness. Considering that December 2022 will mark the 15th anniversary of the establishment of the regional center, we intend to submit a draft resolution to the General Assembly on the role of the center to reflect significant events of recent years and consolidate the mechanisms of regional interaction built on its basis. We are particularly concerned by the current rise in threats to global food security, which are rapidly beginning to affect an increasing number of countries and entire regions. Urgent efforts are required in this context on the part of the entire international community, as well as effective measures in order to overcome the current situation. With a view to maintaining the stability of the global food market and jointly search for solutions to the complex problems of providing food to the most vulnerable countries, as well as in support of the efforts of the Secretary General of the UN in this regard, we propose holding an international forum on food security in Turkmenistan. In the current context, fully delivering on agreements to implement the Sustainable Development Goals is increasingly important. Here, in support of multilateral tools for monitoring the achievement of the SDGs, Turkmenistan will present its second National Voluntary Review of the implementation of the SDGs during the high-level political forum in 2023. At present, meeting the challenge of sustainable development largely depends on the level of international cooperation in critical areas such as transport and energy. Continuing its efforts to promote multilateral transport cooperation, during the current session, Turkmenistan intends to summarize the results of the 2016 and 2021 global conferences on sustainable transport, as well as other high-level transport forums held in recent years, including the Ministerial Transport Conference of landlocked countries held in Turkmenistan on August 15th and 16th of this year, and to prepare proposals to develop a draft concept for a special interregional UN program for transport development. At the current session, Turkmenistan also trusts that a broad dialogue will naturally continue on the issue of energy security. In this context, based on the provisions of UN General Assembly resolutions on the reliability and stability of energy resource supply to world markets, adopted at the initiative of our country, we see a need to continue working on the implementation of Turkmenistan's earlier proposals to establish an international open-ended expert group in order to develop a modern international legal UN toolkit to regulate sustainable and reliable energy transit. Mr. President, in Central Asia, due to objective reasons, climate change and water issues are of crucial importance, and in some cases, they are decisive factors in regional processes with a significant impact on the general situation, the implementation of socioeconomic development plans, and addressing major environmental issues. Based on Turkmenistan's positions on climate change adaptation and mitigation, presented in November 2021 at the 26th session of the Conference of the Parties to the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change in Glasgow, as well as those practically considered during multilateral consultations within the framework of the Climate Conference in Bonn in June this year. Turkmenistan is carrying out preparations for the establishment of a regional center for climate technology for Central Asian states in Ashgabat. At the same time, noting the nationally determined contribution of Turkmenistan adopted in May 2022 as part of its obligations under the Paris Agreement, Turkmenistan intends to intensify efforts to achieve the goals contained in this document, including reducing greenhouse gas emissions and promoting the Global Methane Pledge Initiative. We will continue to make persistent and determined efforts to make the Aral Sea issue a dedicated area of work within the UN. To this end, in May 2023, we intend to resume negotiations on a draft resolution of the UN Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific on the establishment of a special UN program for the Aral Sea Basin, which will be based on the provisions of UN General Assembly resolutions on cooperation between the United Nations and the International Fund for Saving the Aral Sea, adopted in 2018 and 2019. Your Excellencies, the impacts of the pandemic require us to continue our coordinated efforts in order to address identified vulnerabilities in global and national health systems. Turkmenistan will continue supporting the joint efforts of the international community to combat the novel coronavirus infection and create tools for medical diplomacy. Emphasizing the key role of the World Health Organization in developing consolidated responses to common threats, we support the global One Health concept that has been developed and will promote it as part of the roadmap to support the health and well-being of populations in Central Asia through 2025. Distinguished participant, despite the diversity of challenges facing each of our countries, we are united by common hopes, common anxieties, and threats. Turkmenistan stands ready, together with its partners, to seek new approaches and ways to overcome the challenges faced by humanity. Based on our strategic